Unit in the Army that fielded the M923s. I'm an old guy, I guess. Fielded these in 1985. We got the first ones in Germany. They're made for carrying ammunition, not troops. Although they do carry troops, but they usually wait out before they cube out because the ammunition's heavy. So, 6-wheel drive. Really small arms ammunition. M16, 50 cal. The general that I used to work for at Fort Monroe, General Jordan, he was an armor general. When he was in Vietnam, he said he had his tanks out. And, he was a company commander, and they got stuck. So they had to call for support to get their tank pulled out of the muck. And M88 is what they used to haul a tank out of that's a record for a tank. A whole crew of women came. three women came, jumped out of this M88, a track vehicle. It's on the same chassis as an M60 tank used to be. And he was just kind of, he kind of stood back and went, you gotta be kidding. 28 Trans Battalion, 6th Battalion, 106th Battalion, 53rd Battalion, and the German Civilian Labor Group we had. Yeah, over here's the German. Carried tanks, and then we had what they call TETs, heavy equipment transports. We didn't have these trucks. These are from the 50s, I think. You have to read this. Remember, we had a different set of trucks. I believe when we got there, see, I got there in '85 and they got rid of these, and we got those M923s. And they'll pick one every so many years and they get some money and they'll refurbish it.
The DCO 205H proved to be the stalwart tractor that traveled about 25,000 miles per year.
When we went to Desert Storm, we were just building these, Humvees.
Uh-huh.
It's the most uncomfortable thing you ever rode in your life.
Really?
We had, I don't know, we're probably not in here because there's nothing special about them. We had, we called them cut fees, CUVC. And all it was a Dodge, either a Dodge like an SUV or a Dodge truck type thing. They were so much more comfortable. And they tried to make us turn in our Dodges and get these. When I rode in that, I said, this shake my kidneys to death. Uncomfortable, hot, and noisy. Although it does have an air conditioner in it, I believe. And I never really drove one of these. I had this. My first vehicle in the Army was an M51A2. That's it. That's what the platoons all had. We had 4 assigned to the company. All 3 platoon leaders had one, and the company commander had one. And every time the company commander got in his heat paddle parked outside of the headquarters company, the drive axle would fall out. But he had to ride them just like this.
Had to be open, huh?
The commander would not let us put the roofs on them or the doors. And in the wintertime, and when it's raining, it was miserable. That's the boat I was talking about. That used to be, that was in the 97th.
George, what does the word LARC stand for?
Landing Amphibious Vehicle. Does it say it there?
Lighter amphibious resupply cargo, 15 ton.
That was close.
Yeah. It's funny. Cooper's out here. Oh, they don't have one of these. He wants to find those boats that you put together to make a bridge.
He's talking about causeways. I don't know if you have any causeways either.
But they're a ship.
Huh?
I think they're a ship that does it.
Don't know about World War II, but it's a lifeboat. The World War II ones were wooden. Yeah.
The World War II ones, like landed at Normandy, were wooden?
Yeah, they made them in New Orleans.
Huh.
There's a name for them there. You saw one.
Yes, I did. That's a fantastic museum.
In New Orleans?
Oh, yes.
World War II museum.
In fact, on C-SPAN, when they show a lot of programs, they're usually done there. And it is interesting to go through. It's well done. Oh, my land.
Dad, send all the pictures you take to me.
Can I have my phone?
Look how many people.
How many people there would go in there?
During the Korean War, huh?
Okay. The single unit of 309 Transportation Company, Level Transportation Battalion. Oh, down at Port Story. Maintained an active bark, which was finally retired on October 2001.
You could fit 125 men in there.
It's a crane. They call it a skyhook crane. And they put it out there because that's the only helicopter that can pick up all the other helicopters. But the Aviation Logistics Maintenance School is still here, back by the port over there. But they used to put it out. It had a you attach a, what would you call it? It's like a container underneath it. That spot that's open. Personnel pod, or you can put like a cargo pod, or a little bigger, but it sits underneath there and it turns it into whatever kind of helicopter you need. And it's the only one that can pick up a Chinook. Wow. So they used to put it out there with a picture of it to embarrass the Chinook drivers. If you need a lift, give us a hand. Give us a call. Hardly any of the pods survived anything. They've got kind of surprised. They're kind of cool. You have to land down on top of it and hook up to it. Took some flying. There's a whole aviation wing inside the building too. These are small. You see a Navy helicopter.
Yeah.
One of those big Sea Stallions. Those dwarf these. When I was in the National Guard, 51st Military Intelligence Battalion is what I was in, and they flew something called we got one in here now, we called it OB-1 Mohawks, and they were a reconnaissance plane. But the guy took me up in one of these, we were flying, and there's two seats behind me, you see the pilot still sit. Well, one of their training venues is they go in, and then you find an opening in the forest that you can land in, you cut the engine off, and it's called auto rotate in, and just go. It's scary because you're dropping pretty fast.
Yeah.
But you got to control it with pitch and stuff to hit the ground so you don't bust your out. You're not supposed to do that with you're supposed to have two pilots on board. We only have one. But the National Guard guys are nuts. They go out and open all the doors up and stuff and shoot alligators in the swamp. He took me in and said, "Watch, this is going to be cool." And he did that. And they had to get their monthly auto rotation landing. These things feel like they're hardly ever going to get off the ground when you're riding in them. They get called out the Jolly Green Giant. You ever see the movie with Burt Lancaster, Vietnam in the '60s when they were going to Vietnam as advisors? I think they called it the Jolly Green Giant. I'm watching me make a fool of myself, and that's not it. Those call this one a Mojave.
Sikorsky.
Giant, kind of the same. Yeah. I don't know what those things are on the side. It's a landing bay for a wheel. I know that. This must be a presidential helicopter, Mary.
U.S. Army Military District of Washington. It's a Black Hawk. You're right.
It's an extended Black Hawk. If Black Hawks aren't only that long,
they can extend Black Hawks for like when they transport very important people in the army. That's what this is for.
Yeah, presidential, sure.
I went to a documentary on Black Hawks with my grandpa, and there's this thing that happened. There's like this country we didn't like America, and like there's like what they did after high school, like after school, they would go to the water and they go to Black Hawks.
You remember which helicopter Grandpa flew in?
Yes, I do.
Which one? Was it a Chinook or was it like this?
It's this. It's like this because it was smaller. He said it wasn't Chinook. It was different. This is kind of like it. This is close. That's close. It was really close to. It was between these. My papa told me a story. One of his friends was flying a helicopter scout, and it was dark at night, and his
what?
friend.
Hey, wait on a sec.
His friend lost his senses.
Oh, okay.
His friend lost his senses, and then he thought he was going up, but then he went down and he crashed so hard into the ocean that it cracked open, and two of his friends drowned, but the captain and two other guys escaped.
The Officers Club, when the trade-off came, we built this. But we have meetings here. We have not really any.
This is like Officers Club.
That's where I did my service. This is St. Christopher. He's the patron saint of the transportation corps.
Huh.
So it's came here to do the service.
Those are what they call guide outs. You know when they're out on a ceremony and they have the unit, they always have something that identifies the unit they are. Those are their guide outs that they carry in front. Anytime you're commander unit, when you leave that unit, they think it's a copy of the guide out.
The doers.
You guys do it.
That's the 50, no, that's Siggy's Raiders 6. That's the 106th Transportation Battalion. Used to be in Frankfurt. So that's their motto, the doers. Ours was on Tomps, like I signed out.
Yeah.
Same group, on time. And we have one called Siggy's Raiders. I don't know where they came up with that name. That was the 53rd Battalion.
Huh.
But these were all stationed in Germany. A couple of them came out of Vietnam when that wound down and stayed in Germany. You saw that pitchfork patch out there, if you recognize that? Probably don't recognize it, if it's on the side of it. Sort of like this.
Uh-huh.
But the one that's out there is shaped like a shield.
Yeah.
That's the 4th Transportation Command. That was my first unit of assignment. That's what all the battalions were under that. And they inactivated that in 1989. That was the last unit out of Vietnam that was still active when I came on active duty.
Huh.
This is Transportation Corps is responsible for air, rail, highway,
Okay.
and maritime.
Oh, okay.
As far as loading it and planning for the use of it and whatever, so it all has symbolism. The maritime wheel, the U.S. highway sign. This is supposed to be like Pegasus on a rail car.
Uh-huh.
That's what it means. They all have
Spearhead
meaning.
of logistics. Logistics.
I found an old bolt.
Way better than UPS.
I don't know about that.
I found an old bolt control that works.
This field used to be out there, right in that direction. And this is where they did the big regimental reviews every year.
Okay.
This is from what, let's say 86 or
86.
66.
86.
Now this half of the field is Trade Arc headquarters. They built a great big 5 or 6 story structured building. Transportation school's over here. Can't see it in this picture, but it's a low set of buildings. This is right down the street.
Cha.
So you call that the buck and a half?
Okay.
The Roadrunners, the buck and a half,
Yeah.
150th. They ran ammo in Germany. I was part of the 28th Trans Battalion that I was in. Mistaken the eastern corridor route of the Helmstedt Autobahn that would take you into Berlin. And during the days of the Cold War and the Berlin Wall was up, you had to cross from Helmstedt over here.
Yeah.
So me and Mary did this route once. They give you a book with a bunch of pictures and say, don't get off here, don't get off here, don't get off here. You gotta, because if you get off, you get stopped by the East German police, and it's not good. You cause an international incident. But we would have to, the 37th Group, which was the biggest transportation outfit over there, would run quarterly exercise corridor rights and just drive trucks through there. They'd pick up furniture or whatever and bring it back for disposal or exchange or whatever. But just to exercise the fact that we can still do this. Because the East Germans would love, because from Helmstedt to Berlin it's East Germany. So you're in trouble. Because we couldn't go to Potsdam on our first tour when we were there. You couldn't get in there. Had to drive through it and go all the way to West Berlin. You could drive, and then there was also a rail line that went, that did the same thing. But in order to keep the East Germans from shutting it down and keeping us out, because that's when you had the airlift. You've heard of the Berlin airlift?
Mm-hmm.
They shut it down. They wouldn't let any trucks in. So we were flying airplanes out of a place called Tempelhof, which is not on that map, into West Berlin. You've heard about the famous guy that dropped the Hershey's candy bars and stuff?
Uh-uh.
It's a World War II story, or 1950s story, I should say. But we were just flying cargo in, flying to keep the West alive. We went to Berlin a couple of times. We only did the corridor because you had to. You had to go up there to go in. You couldn't go from we were stationed down here. You couldn't go up this way. And then later on our second tour, you could drive right through.
Huh.
It was open, walking down. Walking down in September 1989 or something. We left in May. I left in May. Mary left a few months after I did. We didn't come back at the same time exactly together. But the walking down, just after we left, the walking down, kind of everything changed. But we did this once, and we got scared.
Yeah.
You go in, you got to stop at certain checkpoints, and the checkpoints are run by the Soviets. And you're told when you're going through, you're given these cards written in Russian, and it says if you get stopped for any reason, if your car breaks down or whatever, you're supposed to hold this up to your window, because the East Germans will come and try to get you. And you hold it up to the thing and you demand to see a Soviet officer, because at the time they were our allies. So we would only talk to the Soviets, Russian army.
Yeah.
We wouldn't talk to we weren't allowed to talk to the Eastern Germans. If you went into East Berlin, once you got to West Berlin, then you could take a bus into East Berlin. And we were told to sit on the bus like this, head and eyes forward. We're not allowed to take our ID cards out and show them. Just totally ignore the East Germans, because they don't exist. We didn't recognize their government.
The experimental vehicles on display at the museum could be considered failures in themselves, but Les says they all contributed to the result.
Although they got holes in the side to let the water wash through, but there's still a higher freeboard.
M60. What do you see? What do you got?
Sherman tank.
What kind of tank?
Sherman.
Sherman tank? What size gun? 75 millimeter?
My company, yours truly, loaded that 3 or 4 times.
You loaded that a couple times. So when you got to the Gulf, did they just drop the...
They dropped us off, and then they went over to Bahrain and just sat, because they could drink there.
Yeah.
You know, the crew can get alcohol, what have you. Couldn't drink in Saudi Arabia. And waited. They figured. And essentially, all these are sitting in cradles.
Yeah.
So rather than dismantle it and take, this company got there before we did. But rather than take it apart and put it back in that configuration, they said, well, we'll just wait. They could have been, but the freeboard on it is so, it's low. So your deck is really kind of a wash, something if you get in any kind of water, any sea states. So, I mean, the freeboard on this is actually lower than the freeboard on this.
Okay.
And it sits low, so, you know, you'd be a wash.
Yeah.
Cargo gets salt water in it and stuff, and that's not good. So you could have, but we were going to sail to the Gulf, and then at the last minute, Wakefield, the guy I told you about, said, "Oh, this isn't a good idea."
Yeah.
So they loaded us up and took us. Now these went on their own power. They get a much higher freeboard.